Good morning and good welcome. We are coming to you from the sanctuary of First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Only a half dozen people are in the building this morning, separated by the board's wise decision to stay closed until the number of coronavirus illnesses and deaths is greatly reduced in Tarrant County. In-person services seem further down the road than we had first anticipated in March, but we are keeping a close look at the situation and creating strategies for eventually opening again in a safe manner. But that doesn't mean you can't partake of almost everything the congregation offered pre-pandemic. Services are streamed on Facebook every Sunday morning and can be seen on YouTube and on our website at firstjefferson.org. Pre-service coffee hour is on Zoom. Likewise, a conversation about the service on the following Tuesday. Every Sunday and afternoon, adult religious education class is held, and children's religious education are in the final planning stages. All this and more you can read about in your monthly newsletter, The Courier, and in your weekly update. If you're not on our mailing list, simply write to administrator@firstjefferson.org and you will be added. In the meantime, lean back, pour yourself a cup of coffee or tea, kick off your shoes, and prepare to worship with us this morning. Our topic today is resilience and how it manifests itself in our faith and in our actions. Let us begin our worship with music. Thank you, Misha. Our music is performed as every Sunday by Misha Bresnev, our pianist. Thank you. My call to worship this morning was written by the Reverend Gretchen Haley, and she called it, "And Yet You Persist." Though you have been warned and given plenty of explanations, reasons to do otherwise, you have persisted to claim a life of joy and justice, to carve out this time, this space, for the renewal of your own heart, despite all the reasons, the resistance fighting for your attention, luring you toward fear. You persist to practice gratitude for this day, this life that has been given, this chance to begin again. And so let us gather that we might offer one another courage, strength, healing, hope, and this promise to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, and prevail in a life that is for more than ourselves. Come, let us worship together. And come, let us sing together. Our song leader this morning is Dan Levine, and he will lead us in hymn number 1015, I Know I Can.
Though days be dark with storms, and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. Though sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
Well, that's the whole sermon about resilience right in that one hymn, isn't it? It's not one that I'm familiar with, but I hope we can all learn it when we come back together. Let us light our chalice together with the words of the Reverend Maureen Killoran. We are called today from the midst of pain and challenge, from a world that appears broken. We are called to praise life's moments of joy and grace, to reach out to those around us, to try to make amends for those from whom we are estranged. The world is too fragile. There is too much pain. Let us bring our hearts together on this day. Let us praise the mutilated world in all its blessing and its pain. And now let us repeat our covenant together. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. At this stage in the service, I usually offer you a few questions for you to ponder before I make my response. But today I want to do the story for all ages ahead of those questions. And this is how the story goes. A young woman went to her mother and told her about her life and how things were so hard for her. She did not know how she was going to make it, and she was ready to give up. She was tired of fighting and struggling. It seemed as one problem was solved and a new one arose. Her mother said nothing, simply went to the kitchen, taking the daughter with her. Without a word, she filled 3 pots with water. Into the first, she placed 3 carrots. In the second, she placed 2 eggs. And in the last, she placed a half cup of ground coffee beans. She let them sit and boil, still without saying a word. In about 20 minutes, she turned off all 3 burners, and she fished the carrots out and placed them in a bowl. She pulled the eggs out and dumped them in another bowl, and then she ladled the coffee into a 3rd bowl. Turning to her daughter, she said, "What do you see?" And the daughter said, "Carrots, eggs, and coffee," wondering how this was going to solve her problems. Her mother brought her closer and asked her to feel the carrots. She did, and she noted that they had turned soft. She then asked her to take an egg and break it. But only the shell broke, and after pulling it off, she observed that the eggs were hard-boiled. Finally, she asked her daughter to sip the coffee. The daughter smiled as she tasted its rich aroma. But she said to her mother, as daughters say, "What's the point, Mother?" She didn't want breakfast. She wanted solutions to her problems. And her mother explained that each of these objects had faced the same adversity, boiling water. But each had reacted differently. The carrot went in strong and hard and unrelenting. However, after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and became weaker. The egg had been fragile. Its thin outer shell had barely protected its liquid inside. But after being through the boiling water, its inside became hardened and durable. The ground coffee beans were unique, however. After they were in the boiling water, they had changed the water. "Which are you?" she asked the daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean?" Oh, that's one of those stories that can't be finished. You have to continue to think about it, don't you? Because my first question this morning is this: when adversity strikes, which are you? A carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? But my second question follows fast on its heels. Isn't there room and purpose for all 3, depending on the situation? And finally, I want to ask, what does it mean to be a person of resilience? And how does this trait manifest itself in our shared faith? I'm not even going to give you time to think about it this morning. I'm ready with my first response. When I heard the story for all ages, of course I said, I want to be a coffee bean. I want to change the water around me. I want to make a difference to what's going on. I want to be a role model, a leader, a problem solver, a fixer. And then suddenly I felt overwhelmed again. That's been happening a lot lately. I mean, first there's the pandemic. I can't change that, solve that, fix that. I have to follow the rules, the mandates, wear a mask, stay at home, work from home. I have to be flexible, like a cooked carrot. But that's not all that's going on. There's all this civil unrest, the fact that we are finally beginning to face the fact of historic and smothering white supremacy, the pain surrounding it, the anger and hurt created by it, and the persistent calls for justice. I can't fix that, not by myself. I don't even know how it's going to get fixed. I know it will require people working together. It will require self-examination, will require misunderstandings and hurt feelings until we can work it all out and find justice and equity in our relations. It will require hard work. But I can harden myself. I can toughen myself for the long battle ahead, like a hard-boiled egg compared to a raw one. Yes, but then there's the unknowing. How will it all end? Will it end? Will we ever return to normal? Will there be a new normal, and will I even like it? Will it include the calls for justice that ring through the streets today? And on top of all that, there's the seasonal heat, which happens every year, and we live through it, but it's only just started, and already I'm frazzled and undone by it. The waters of living keep boiling and boiling. If someone doesn't turn it off, literally and figuratively, the heat around us, the carrots among us will become mush, the eggs will become inedible rocks, and the coffee will be bitter. And finally, it will all boil dry and burn the pan. Oh my goodness, can someone give me another story to work with? No, I'm okay, I'm fine. Let's talk about the weather. I was thinking before I sat down to write about resilience that when I lived in the north, remember that I was born in Chicago and lived in Michigan for a while. When I lived in the north, around February, people started to get tired of winter, sick of the cold, the snow and ice, the fact that we were all pretty much housebound by the weather. We began to count the days until the possible end of it. I think that's why the groundhog story is so popular in the upper half of the nation. April is the hoped-for time of release, but you can't count on it. The end of April is the suggested time for planting, even the first part of May if you can wait. But I'll tell you, it has snowed on my birthday in Chicago, which is the first day of May. In February, nothing looks certain about winter's end. And here in Texas, I find something similar in July, but it's about the heat. How many days of 100 degrees or more have we already had? How long is it going to last? My electric bill, which came this morning, is staggering. My lawn is drying up. October is still at least 8 or 10 weeks away, and you can't always trust it will be over by then. Now, we are all used to these annual adversities. We deal with them in our separate ways. Complaining helps a bit. It doesn't change anything, but it helps to think we are not in it alone. Going somewhere else is a solution. Putting in a swimming pool is another. But not everyone can afford those tactics. And so we commiserate with one another, grit our teeth, and hold on. And every year we get through it. We have trained ourselves to be seasonally resilient. These are part of the vicissitudes of life, part of the interdependent web that sends out messages to its participants like, don't give up. This too shall pass. But when things pile up from time to time, when we are caught in a three-car smash-up of events as we are now, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Understandable to consider giving up, giving in, getting lost in the labyrinth of staying alive, staying connected, staying sane. Take grief, for instance. We've all experienced it. Grief doesn't just boil over us like the water in the story. It pulls all the water out of us and it leaves us dry, desiccated, helpless, hopeless. Our share of resilience is insufficient to cope sometimes, it seems. It feels so personal when it happens to us, so all-pervasive, so permanent. Add to that the other things that are happening around you over which you have no control, and when you realize that everyone else is going through the same thing, you feel guilty about complaining, and that adds to your sense of hopelessness. I think individuals, when we begin to feel thus overwhelmed, tend to isolate themselves from others, thinking they don't want to dump their misery on anyone else. And guess what? That only makes them feel worse. When we feel least sociable is when we need one another the most. Where is our resilience going to come from then? Well, I feel I'm digging a ditch here, aren't I? I want to lay out what many of us are going through right now so I can assure you that there is a way out. There is help for these feelings. There is something you can do about gaining resilience. And now I'm wondering if I haven't made it worse by bringing all of these things up. It feels overwhelming as I lay out our human problems. But no, I'm a firm believer in getting it all out in the open, talking about it, helping us understand that we are not alone. We don't have to be a solitary hero. We can feel overwhelmed and not be ashamed or frightened or distraught. There is a solution somewhere down the road, and a temporary solution for this moment. And this is it. When you're feeling overwhelmed, stop. Breathe. Breathe in. Breathe out. Keep breathing. There is hope. There is joy ahead. We are connected. Together, we are awesome. Wait a minute, why does that sound so familiar? Hope, joy, connection, awe? Isn't that the 4 values we chose for the banner of our belief, the one that splashes across our newsletter, that permeates our being together? Okay, let's just continue breathing for a while. This is good. Let's relax into our connections. Let's open the window a crack so that hope can enter. Let's consider that joy is just outside the door. That's awesome. Hang on. I'll be back in a minute with some good news about resilience, yours and mine. Breathe in, breathe out. But now it's time for my weekly generosity report. The leadership experience is going virtual this year, like so many other meetings. Most years we are fortunate to have 1 or 2 participants. It's a week-long meeting and includes meals and rooms. It's expensive, but it's worth it. This year, attendance will cost only $75 because you will study from home and meet online 3 times for discussions. At the most recent board meeting, we learned we could enroll a team of up to 10 people. And I suggested we try to gather that many. And 4 board members said that they would provide scholarships if people couldn't afford the $75. And boy, I thank those board members for their generosity. Look for information in coming weeks. Every Sunday, we celebrate a communion of names and milestones, the stories that exist in this community. I have 2 this morning. Thomas Earthman, our religious education coordinator, is working on an online course for children connected to the worship service each Sunday. Watch for announcements coming soon. And Patrick Gutierrez can see better with one eye this week and will have cataract surgery on the other one on Monday. Good going, Patrick, and best of luck. Everyone else seems well. I've heard nothing about any illnesses or disasters, so I'm just assuming the best, but let us know if you need anyone to talk to, any kind of help, and we will include you in our communion of names and milestones. In the meantime, let us share a moment of silence together, and then a musical interlude. and concern. Misha? No, Dan, we're not singing now. We're just going to have a bit of meditation music. Thank you. I don't know about you, but I always feel a little bit better after a moment of meditation together and our musical interlude. But just in case you aren't there yet, my reading this morning is titled A Prayer for Hopelessness by Odette Fulbright-Folson. She wrote, "The days that come and carry away your spirit, your spark, bow down to them. Lay your head on the hard earth and let your brokenness join the death that is stirring there. Because life rebels against death, takes the very dust out of our bones and reweaves it into glory. You were made for life, and life does not intend to let you go, not just yet. But rest you can. Decay and falling away from ourselves are part of that process. And if you need to fall apart, then do, for life will hold you in that too. We'll teach you how to desiccate and blow away, and then we'll call you back from the four corners of the earth, and we'll renew you with the water of the tears of others who, like you, weep for all that is lost. She will breathe back into you the breath that washes from the mouths of children laughing, from the lion's roar, from the exhalation of trees. You will be reborn into the arms of beloveds, and together we will sing a new song. And we don't know what that new song will be yet, so until we do, why not sing together an old song, a prayer for our hanging in there, for not getting anything more banging on our door than we can handle, for holding on and being strengthened. Dan, will you lead us in hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door?
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This heart, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. Ye shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Thank you. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. That hymn soothes and comforts me in so many ways. There's that sense of our not being in anything alone. That's important to hang on to. We are a community. Discussing how each of its parts is important is part of the whole and is affected by how one another is weathering this storm of events, whether it's the summer heat, the enforced solitude, the political lightning that rages around us, or our own feelings of helplessness and grief. I brought grief into the equation of my first response because I think that we can learn the most about ourselves and our recovery from studying how we handle grief, the ultimate feeling of loss and helplessness. And how we handle grief is usually built on how we were taught in our families to deal with it, either by words or modeled action. When I teach a class in loss and grief, I ask the participants to recall their first memory of loss. As a child, it is often a grandparent or a pet, but everyone is different. Everyone has a different experience. And then I ask what they were taught to do with their feelings, and the answers are surprisingly similar. My own family was of the stiff upper lip variety. When my dog Nipper ran away, I was told, "If you're going to cry, go to your room. You're just making everyone else feel bad." This wasn't a cruelty on their part, not purposely anyway, but it hurt. And I grew up believing that sorrow wasn't to be displayed. It was to be, if you had to go through it, done quietly and privately. You weren't to make other people feel bad. The thing is, when the people in the loss and grief class share their losses and the teachings that followed, they are often the same. It's a social thing. We are generally not taught to deal well with grief in this society. But slowly we are learning there are other ways. We are learning that we need to be able to talk about grief, to find friends, even strangers in support groups, who understand what we are going through and will hear our sorrow. We may need to wallow in it for a while, just not forever. Grieving heals, and without healing, we cannot build resilience. Remember when I suggested that when you feel overwhelmed, you feel it's personal, pervasive, and permanent? That's also common. We need to tell people it isn't so. Sheryl Sandberg wrote a book after her husband died, which she called Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resistance, and Finding Joy. She said the thing that helped her most was realizing her loss, her grief, wasn't her fault. And it wasn't going to affect her entire life, and it wasn't going to last forever. When she was finally able to believe these things, she said she regained her resilience, regained her ease with life. Or listen to this poem by Mary Oliver, which she called Heavy, and which appeared in her book Thirst, about how she found her lost resilience and found it again. She wrote, "That time, I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still, I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among lions, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it, when you cannot and would not put it down. So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind and maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. I think Mary Oliver discovered there is resilience in us. It's part of our DNA, part of our evolutionary inheritance. We just have to remember to care for ourselves as much as we care about what's going on around us. We have to remember that part of our living tradition that we draw from is the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. And we have to remember we can't take it all on our shoulders at once. It depends on how we carry it, how we balance it. During this time of our church being closed for worship, we can have only one choir member at a time to be our song leaders, but I'll bet every one of them who have come here to help with the recordings of the service will relate to this advice by Amy Van Osdell. If you've sung in a choir, you'll know what she means. She wrote, "This morning I have been pondering a nearly forgotten lesson I learned in high school music. Sometimes in band or choir, music requires players or singers to hold a note longer than they can actually hold a note. In those cases, we were taught to mindfully stagger when we took a breath so the sound appeared uninterrupted. Everyone got to breathe, and the music stayed strong and vibrant. So let's remember the advice of music. Take a breath. The rest of the chorus will sing. The rest of the band will play. Rejoin so others can breathe. Together we can sustain a very long, beautiful song for a very, very long time. You don't have to do it all, but you must add your voice to the song." So yes, our faith as Unitarian Universalists does have things to teach us about resilience. Breathe when you can't hold on any longer, whether it's to a musical note or an upset that life throws you. Don't try to go through it alone. Live the pain. It's real and it needs attending to. Hang on to hope. There is not only light at the end of the tunnel, there is also joy. Go limp when you have to, like a carrot. Be strong when you feel fortified, like an egg. And make changes in the water and the air around you whenever you can. And please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
I didn't have a third response this morning. 2 almost did me in. I got so involved with my topic. But I did say that I would give you 3 spiritual disciplines to practice this summer. Last week, I taught you a metta, loving kindness meditation to say every day to build your compassion for yourself and for others. This week, I want to suggest that you simply pay attention to a single word in your vocabulary. Pay attention, maybe mark down a slash on a piece of paper if it helps every time you say the word hate. We overuse it, all of us. I hate that kind of music. I hate blueberry pie. I hate the color yellow on me. I hate that actress who plays on the TV show. But I don't mean anything by it, you protest. It's just a word. Ah, yes, but words have meaning. Words have power. By dictionary definition, hate includes intense passion, not usually associated with colors or pies. And it's related to loathing, detesting, a desire for revenge or retaliation. And if we use it casually, saying it means nothing, then it is far too easy to use the word when revenge or retaliation may just turn out to be what follows our declaration. So wipe it from your vocabulary if you can. Use it only when you plan to exterminate the object of your contempt. Keep track of your usage with a spiritual discipline. You will be surprised how often this word is in your everyday language. And if we eliminate it from our language, we have a chance of eliminating it from our actions, from our lives. The flame in our chalice has burned as a symbol of our strength and persistence and our weaknesses that can be overcome in loving community. Take it into your heart to remind you that you are not alone, that resilience lives in the core of even a broken heart. In this time, when rhetoric blusters about and words are used as weapons, may we remember we are people of resilience. We have faced uncertainty before. We have weathered storms. We have been consumed by flames. We have risen like the phoenix from the ashes, and we will again. May we remember our shared humanity, our universal kinship, our interdependence as we unclench our fists and breathe together. So may it be in all our lives.